Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. We are talking about one of the most crucial issues going on in Minnesota's prisons. That is phone calls. Phones are a lifeline to people to survive and be connected to the community, to share important family information, and to know what's going on in the world. They're also crucial for stability in prisons. But since free phone calls were instituted in 2023 in Minnesota's prisons, phone calling has become much more dangerous. There's been many reports of assaults, intimidation, and concerns about people having access to the phones. But there are solutions. My name is David Benke, and I'm here with Derek Dukes, and we're going to talk about this crucial issue today, what's going on with the phones, a new policy that the DOC is instituting that us with loved ones in prisons are deeply concerned about, and then solutions. Let me pass it over to Mr. Dukes.
Um, Good morning. I'm Derek Dukes. I've been out now for like a good 19 months, maybe after doing 32 years. And the phone accessibility, as far as family stability and safety inside prison, is a lived experience for me. I have a different perspective. Um, I think for more than 30 years of my life spent incarcerated, phones were never just a luxury or a comfort. They were the most valuable stabilizing tool inside prisons. The forums was how I stayed connected to my children, was how I connected to my spouse, how I connected to my mom, my family, my loved ones. And even today, the issue remains personal to me because I still have two sons in there. So they're currently incarcerated, and the phone access remains their primary connection to family as well. So it takes on a different total or dualistic meaning to me.
Absolutely. And I also have a level one in K2B in Faribault, which is where they're instituting a new policy with phones. Again, phone calls were made free in 2023. People were and are really excited not to have to spend their hard-earned pennies to just talk to their loved ones. And there's been unintended consequences. Um, Lots of people that I know report that it's very hard to access the phones, and sometimes they're worried for their physical safety. You should absolutely not risk your life to make a phone call to a loved one. It's also really scary because prison is not a safe place all the time, and to not be able to hear from your loved one, to know that they're okay, or to let them know really important things going on here, like what happens if their auntie passes, you know what I mean? Or if my cousin is having trouble and we need them to call them to try to figure out a situation. It's really important that people have regular access to the phones. And that's why we're so concerned about this new policy, because it seems like every time something changes for the positive in the DOC, something else changes for the worse. And in this case, they're increasingly restricting the phones, and they're rolling out a new policy in Faribault that prevents people from making phone calls 3 days a week. So as opposed to being able to make phone calls 7 days a week in these pilot units, my loved one can now only access the phone 4 days a week. And that means that phones calling is more scarce. It means that there's 3 days where if something happens inside or out, they just can't know and be in communication. And that's something that's really personally upsetting and concerning. It also just shows a general failure of the DOC to be able to have basic control in their own facilities and basic safety, which is something we all need. And also, it just shows that people are using collective punishment rather than solution making. Everyone in prison cares about making phone calls and cares about people having phone calls. There's got to be a better solution to this. Um, your son is also in there, Derek. Do you have anything more you want to say about this new policy?
Yeah, I first want to say that the phone accessibility, it does matter because in reality, like the family contact reduces misconduct and violence. It also maintains parental and family roles, like I said before, to support rehabilitative for reentries. The recess of mind, it aligns us with public safety and institutional stability. If you think about it on the long runs, and I just the phone accessibility, like I said before, it wasn't a comfort. It was more about stability. If you could only hug your people for 10 minutes on a rug and they leave and all that, everything is reconsolidated or reconfirmed on these phones. When incarcerated people can regularly speak to their family, they are more grounded. We were more accountable. We were less reactive. Rather than being responsive to understand what the cognitive thinking behind that was. This has been true across decades, facilities, and generations. I saw it during my incarceration, that I see it now through my sons and how frustrated they are if they could talk to mom or dad, if they call their son or their daughter. I mean, they have to really consolidate who they talk to when they speak to them. There's just too much stuff going on to try to go through this. On top of there's still the ability of to still be harassed and increase that stuff around the whole facility now. So,
Absolutely. And
and,
what do you think about this new policy? How is this affecting you or your communication with your son? Or how does that feel to know that calls are already being restricted to 3 days a week for some and maybe for everyone soon?
right. And again, I understand this is to prevent the manipulation or the gain influence or whatever they try to say or promote fairness in order. But the concern is that the scarcity increase the pressures and conflict. It doesn't resolve them. Now I understand the intent behind it, limited phone access, but at the same time, that limited access, it doesn't eliminate the need to communicate. It basically compresses it. Phone become more valuable now. It become more contested, and it can become more stressful when the access is restricted. So I don't know if it was a well thought out plan. I hope that with the pilot situation that see it's an increase rather than a decrease of these type of things.
Yeah. And just to co-sign what Derek is saying there is that there is an ongoing concern now that gangs are monopolizing phone lines. So they say that this is this gang's phone and that's that gang's phone. And so it's restricting people's ability to make phone calls and it's creating violence as people are trying to enforce that situation. But restricting everyone's ability to make phone calls seems to be causing more problems than it solves. Um, the last thing I would say and take us to, and then maybe we can open up for questions or see if there's anything else we want to talk about here, is what do we do instead? The DOC is
Uh,
they're worried about phone violence. Loved ones are worried about phone violence. People in prison are worried about it. But what can be done to solve the problem here?
I'm also thinking that I just don't think they took into account the unintended consequences, maybe we can call. If you observe these effects, you'll see that it does increase the tension and competition immediately. It rushes emotionally charged calls. If something hang up or disconnect, double dialing, it can get more volatile and heighten the conflict over this access, and it reduces the quality of family connection. And what I mean by that, just I think over the weekend, somebody was in line, waited the whole 20 minutes, and right before he got there, somebody took the phone from him. And then he had a couple of people around to do that because they're trying to get these phone calls out the way. And I also believe in these situations, because the ones with the so-called lesser crimes or whatever the hierarchy goes in there, they more ostracized now. Now they don't get to use the phone. Now if they say something, now it convince are they telling? Now are they getting stabbed? It just creates a whole bunch of things because when the time is limited, calls become like so rushed and emotional. You try to get stuff off, especially if it's an argument and you spend the whole call with there. So it takes on a different meaning when you try to get stuff accomplished when you just try to be a bully over the phone. Arguments happen more easily. The pressure builds, and that experiences, or in my experiences, um, and now as a parent to the outside, because I have kids in there, this environment does not reduce violence. Scarcity in actual increasing it, but around the phone and throughout the unit. Because now if it's a problem over the phone, now when you switch out the rec, now you switch out the flag, now you switch out the meals, it trickles down. I don't know why they don't understand what the effects is and what the pilot program, if they sit back, they can see all the stuff materializing in there and right in front of them.
Absolutely. And this is also where, um, there are many states with prisons, and there are many better solutions than what's going on in Minnesota. In states across the country, from South Dakota to Ohio to Arizona, they're using tablet-based calling to stop this kind of pressure on phones, which means that everyone has their own tablet, everyone can make phone calls from their own cells or in permitted areas, depending on the policies in the prisons. And then suddenly there's nothing to monopolize. There's no phone lines, there's no stress, there's no concerns about, oh, can I call my family this time? Or, oh, will that time work? It allows people to schedule and have regular connections with their people. And it also takes out the power of certain forces to be able to control and monopolize things. This is something that the commissioner and the Walz administration were talking about doing in 2019. It is now 2026. We now have seen a big reduction in tablets. They don't have a tablet contract, but it is time for them to do what they've been promising the whole time they've been in power, which is to get tablets and to have phone calling on tablets so we don't have this kind of violence over the phones and so that people don't have to choose between calling their loved ones and risking their safety. Um, Anything else you want to add to that?
Yes, because I have family members in Ohio who are incarcerated, and they've been doing this since like I think 2016, 17. So it's been going on for years, and it reduces less traffic on flag. It reduces less congestion. I mean, the people that needs to be out there can be out there because the tablets will generate a different thing. I've seen have a video visit over the phone. I've seen they can take pictures and send them out to their people over the phone in a cell, and it's not the congestion that they think it's going to be. And like I know a key takeaway is the phone access as a safety and a rehabilitative tool for us. So the recommendation to increase the frequency while maintaining structure would be decent, or to prevent monopolization without extreme scarcity would be decent, or recognize that family contact as a stabilizing force because they don't know what a parent can do or what somebody else can do. Because phones help people to stay connected to who they are beyond prison. That connection matters for safety, rehabilitation, and accessible reentry. This isn't a theoretical for me. I lived it, and I'm still living it through my sons, again, who I have 2 of them in there. And the policy should reduce harm and strengthen stability, not unintentionally create more tension inside.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Phones need to be rehabilitation. People need to be understanding, being able to operate as fathers and sons and nephews, and daughters and so on, and not just be stuck in a prison world. Um, KSTP or Fox, do you have any questions? And hello, dog. Is there any questions for us before we get out of here? All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for being here. I'll give Mr. Derek the last word in just a second, but just again, um, loved ones should not have to be worried about their people making phone calls if they'll be safe to do it. People in prison should not be worried that they can't reach their loved ones more than 4 days a week and not know what's going on. And phone call and connection can and should be rehabilitation, and would call on the Department of Corrections and the governor's administration to make that happen. Last words, Derek?
I just think it'd be real more relaxing and helpful to their institution if we don't have to come to the phone with an agenda to talk to our kids and the family and try to get everything done and or consolidate in a time frame. Because even if you hang up and try to segment the calls, now you got to wait another 15 minutes for that, which might create a whole other day. So the process, I don't understand how it's a preventative measure of anything.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a beautiful day, and we'll be in touch.
All right, thank you.